I never thought I'd be the one calling the police about my own house. But that's exactly what happened. I was standing in my driveway when 2 patrol cars pulled up, their red and blue lights flashing against my freshly painted shutters. And right there, on my lawn, was a woman in a pastel cardigan, screaming at the top of her lungs like I was the trespasser. "He's on private property. Remove him immediately," she shrieked, her hand trembling as she jabbed her finger straight at me. The officers looked at each other, confused, before stepping out. One of them, a tall guy with calm eyes, asked for my ID. Without hesitation, I handed him my license. "I just moved in last month," I said evenly. "This is my home. I have no idea who she is or why she's accusing me of trespassing." Her face turned beet red. "That's ridiculous," she snapped. "I'm the owner's wife. My husband and I have lived here for years. This man is lying." While one officer radioed in my info, the other tried to calm her down. I stood there, oddly composed, because deep down I knew the truth was on my side. A tense minute later, the radio crackled back. The officer's tone shifted immediately. "Ma'am, according to county records, this property was purchased by this gentleman 5 weeks ago. He's the legal owner." Her face went ghost white. Her mouth opened, closed, then opened again, but no words came out. This house had been my dream for nearly 10 years. I'd saved every penny, hopping from one tiny apartment to another, just waiting for the day I could finally call a place mine. And now it was real. A modest 3-bedroom in a quiet suburban neighborhood, lined with perfect lawns and mostly polite neighbors. But not her. I first met her as Mrs. Wilkins, the proud president of the Sunny Pines HOA. On my second day, she showed up at my door, massive binder in hand, smile tight as a stretched rubber band. No trash cans visible from the street. Lawn mowed weekly. No overnight parking. Her voice was crisp, rehearsed, like she'd done this 1,000 times. I nodded politely, took the binder, and promised to review it. But that wasn't the end of it, not even close. 3 days later, as I was unloading furniture from a rental truck, she appeared again. "Deliveries are allowed only between 9 and 5 on weekdays," she said sharply. "It's 4:30 and it's Friday," I replied. She sniffed, muttered something about newcomers, and marched off like a general leaving the battlefield. Then came the nitpicking relentless. A note about my grass being a 1/4 inch too long. A complaint about the color of my garden hose. Even an 8 a.m. knock to scold me for leaving my porch light on overnight. "Wasteful," she said, quoting HOA Section 12, Paragraph 4. Still, I kept calm. I made small changes when reasonable and stood my ground when she crossed the line. But then things got personal. She began questioning whether I even belonged there. "I knew the Hendersons," she said coldly one afternoon. "They never mentioned selling to someone like you." The way she said "someone like you," it made my skin crawl. "The sale went through legally," I told her. "Everything's in order." Her eyes narrowed. "Let me see your lease." "I don't have a lease," I said. "I bought this house. I own it," she laughed. "Impossible. The Hendersons would have told me." Then she spun on her heel and stormed off. From there, it only escalated. I caught her peeking over my fence while I grilled, snapping photos of me getting my mail, and, believe it or not, rummaging through my garbage bins on collection day. When I confronted her, she said, "It's an HOA inspection. I have every right." Then, one night, I came home to an official HOA letter, signed by Karen herself, claiming unauthorized occupancy. Alarmed, I called the number listed. A confused board member answered. He had no idea what I was talking about. Apparently, Karen had sent the letter alone, without any board approval. They apologized and promised to handle it. I thought that would be the end of it. I couldn't have been more wrong. The next week, I left town for a short business trip. When I came back Sunday night, exhausted and ready for bed, my key didn't fit the lock. I tried again, and again, until it hit me the locks had been changed. Taped to the front door was a printed notice. "Property under HOA custody. The owner's spouse has reclaimed the residence." My heart sank. This wasn't harassment anymore. This was a crime. Thankfully, I'd hidden a spare key in the backyard. The back door opened. Inside, everything looked untouched. But the violation, it was bone deep. I called the police and filed a report. By morning, I was still shaking as I brewed my coffee, and that's when I heard it. The doorknob rattling. Through the peephole, Karen. key in hand, trying to unlock my door. I swung it open so fast she stumbled backward, dropping the key in shock. "What do you think you're doing?" I demanded. Her fear flipped to fury in an instant. "How did you get in here?" "This property is under HOA management." "This is my home," I said firmly. "I own it. You changed my locks without permission, and now you're trying to break in." "That's illegal, Karen!" Her face twisted with rage. "You're the trespasser!" she hissed. "I know the Hendersons personally," she insisted, chin high with fake confidence. "They still own this house. Mrs. Henderson is a dear friend of mine. She asked me to keep an eye on things while she's away. You're trespassing, and I'm calling the police right now." Before I could even speak, she whipped out her phone, dramatically dialing 911. "911, what's your emergency?" came the faint voice through the speaker. "There's an intruder in my friend's home," Karen said, her voice trembling with rehearsed fear. "He's threatening me. I'm afraid for my safety." "Please send officers immediately." She gave them my address, then turned to me with that smug grin, the kind that said she thought she'd already won. "You're making a huge mistake," I said quietly. "I have every document proving this house belongs to me." "We'll see about that," she snapped. "The police will handle it." Within minutes, 2 patrol cars rolled into my driveway, the same officers as before. Karen wasted no time twisting the story, painting herself as a terrified victim. "I'm the owner's wife," she declared confidently. "This man broke in and refuses to leave." One of the officers turned to me. "Sir, can you provide ID or proof of ownership?" "Absolutely," I replied, keeping my voice calm. I stepped inside, grabbed my driver's license, the property deed, and the closing documents, then handed them over. The officer flipped through each page carefully, his brow furrowing in concentration. Finally, he nodded slowly. "These appear legitimate. According to these records, you purchased the home from the Hendersons 5 weeks ago." Karen's confident smile faltered, but she wasn't giving up. "That's impossible. Those must be forgeries," she stammered. "I just spoke to Mrs. Henderson last week." The officers exchanged looks. "Ma'am," one said evenly, "we'll need to verify your identity and your claimed relationship to the Hendersons." "May we see your ID?" Karen's eyes narrowed. "I don't see why that's necessary. I'm just here as a friend, looking out for her property." The officer's tone hardened. "Ma'am, you called 911 claiming to be the owner's wife and reported a break-in. That's a serious accusation. Please provide identification." Her hands shook slightly as she pulled out her wallet. The officer read her license, then frowned. "Mrs. Wilkins, your address is 3 blocks away from here." "You're not related to the Hendersons, are you?" Karen froze. Her voice dropped to a nervous whisper. "Well, no, not technically, but we're close friends. They would have told me if they sold the house." "There must be a mistake." "There's no mistake, ma'am," the officer said firmly. "County records confirm this gentleman is the legal owner. Now tell me, how did you get a key to this property?" Karen's face went pale. Well, as HOA president, I have certain responsibilities, community standards to maintain." "That doesn't include changing locks or entering private homes," the officer cut her off. "Do you currently have a key?" Her trembling hand slipped into her pocket, pulling out the very same key she'd dropped earlier. The officer took it, examining it closely. "Mrs. Wilkins, how exactly did you obtain this?" Karen's composure cracked completely. "The Hendersons gave me a spare years ago. I was just trying to protect the neighborhood from unauthorized occupants," she cried hysterically. The officer exchanged a knowing look with his partner, then sighed. "Mrs. Wilkins, turn around and place your hands behind your back." Karen blinked, stunned. "What? You can't be serious." "I'm placing you under arrest," he said firmly, "for criminal trespassing, attempted unlawful entry, and filing a false police report. You have the right to remain silent." I stood frozen on my porch as they cuffed her, Karen, the self-proclaimed HOA queen, now being led to the squad car, still screaming that it was all a misunderstanding. Neighbors peeked out from behind curtains, some stepping outside. A few looked shocked, but most looked relieved. After she was secured in the back of the patrol car, one officer turned to me. "Sir, we'll need a formal statement at the station. Given the evidence, she'll likely face multiple charges, and consider filing a restraining order." As the flashing lights faded down the street, a few neighbors approached me. To my surprise, many were thankful. Turns out, Karen had been terrorizing the entire neighborhood for years, abusing her HOA title to bully and intimidate residents over the smallest things. Nobody had ever stood up to her until now. The investigation later confirmed everything. She was friends with the Hendersons and still had their spare key from years ago. When they moved out, they forgot to take it back. A mistake Karen turned into an obsession. She even hired a locksmith, pretending to be the homeowner who'd lost her keys, just to change my locks. Her downfall was swift. She was charged with criminal trespassing, attempted breaking and entering, filing a false police report, and impersonation with intent to defraud. At her arraignment, the judge set her bail at $20,000 and issued a strict no-contact order protecting me and my property. Karen now faced up to 2 years in prison and over $10,000 in fines. I'll never forget the look on her face in court, that flash of disbelief when she realized her arrogance had finally met consequences. For the first time in her life, her entitlement couldn't save her. If you enjoyed this real-life neighbor nightmare, don't forget hit like if you stood with justice. Comment. If you've ever had a neighbor like Karen, share this story with your friends and subscribe to Neighbor Wars HQ, where every fence hides a new feud and every neighbor has a secret.